share my screen and we will get started. All right. Where's my little green thing? You guys see that okay? Thumbs up, Sonia Araceli? Yeah, okay, cool. Awesome. So this is the graduation and ESM workshop, specifically for liberal studies majors at the main campus. It is September 2020, and this is being presented by the Liberal Studies Advising Team, which consists of myself, Dina Hallmark, Sonia Gonzalez, and Araceli Esparza. First and foremost, we wanted to talk about the documents that you guys received prior to this. So when you signed up for the workshop, that put you on a list for the three of us to prepare your files. So you were sent via email an outline, an educational plan, if applicable. So not everyone got one, but most of you did. And then a graduation checklist. So we'll be going through each of these individually to go over what they are, how we use them, and how we encourage you guys to use them. It is important to note, and I'll say this a couple times throughout the presentation, that between the three of us, we prepped over 150 student files last week. So as much as we try not to make any mistakes and we try to put out as much accurate information as possible, it is really important that you guys are double checking your own outline and ed plan and checklist. So make sure that there's no errors, that there's no mistyped dates or anything like that. And if you're not sure, hopefully the presentation today will help clarify anything that may have seemed off. So the outline is really just an updated list of your courses, what you've completed so far and what you've got remaining. The educational plan takes that list from the outline and it puts it in a semester by semester plan. And that's where we also include any extra units you may need. And we do unit calculations to make sure that you're meeting all of those minimum requirements for graduation. The graduation checklist is individualized, so specific to the plan that you're on or the timeline that you're on. And it gives you a checklist of items that you need to complete prior to graduation and then leading up to credential, if applicable. Again, some of you may not be interested in a teaching credential. We try to make notes on there that say not applicable. But again, each one of these graduation checklists were filled in with your specific information. And then the dates and deadlines are based on the educational plan that we created. So it's important if you change anything for that plan to know that those dates may then be impacted. So just keep that in mind. All right, for the outline and educational plan, a little bit more in depth, your outline that you received contains the most up-to-date information that we have for you. So since we started emailing out the packets with the outline and stuff, we received a few emails back saying, oh, hey, I took this class over the summer, or, you know, this class is missing from my outline. If that's the case, so say you know that you've taken and completed another course somewhere else, we ask that you send official transcripts from that institution to CSUB admissions and records. If you have already done that, but it's still not reflecting on your outline, we're asking that you submit a contact request form through our Liberal Studies website. So I've provided the link there. Sonia or Araceli, do you guys mind dropping that link in the chat so folks can get it there? Sure. But yeah, that's a way for us to, it basically sends our shared email a message that says that you, that includes your name and ID and all that information. And then in the question box, you can put that you took a course, you've sent your transcript, but it's not reflecting on your outline, and we can get that fixed for you. The educational plan is really a plan that we've made for you based on the number of classes that you have left. It's something ideally, we would be making these plans with you one-on-one, right? Because we could ask you questions like, how many classes do you feel comfortable taking, and things like that. But because of the volume of students we have and the fact that there's only 3 of us, we had to do these on our own and then send them to you. But it is important to know that it's not set in stone, right? You can change it. You don't have to take as many classes as we put on there if you don't want to, but just know that that impacts then your time to degree, potentially. So it's really just a tool for you to hypothetically see your path to degree completion. So how quickly can you be done? Not everyone received an educational plan, specifically those of you who are graduating this semester. So if you're finishing up your degree fall of 2020, you probably did not receive an educational plan because you're in your last remaining classes right now. So you didn't need one. However, everyone should have received a graduation checklist if you RSVP'd for this session. And what this is, like I said, mentioned before, it's a list of all the things you need to complete before graduation and then leading up to credential. So some of the items may be applicable to you, others may not. It really just depends on the student in particular. All of the links on the form should take you directly to the websites where you'll find more information. So this one document for sure does not have all of the information you need. That's why we provide those links so that you can click on them and review those websites specifically. So the list is really based off of the current requirements that the university and the credential program have right now. It's really important to know that, especially right now during COVID, a lot of things are changing, a lot of things are fluid. So it's your responsibility to stay on top of the credential program website, our admissions and records graduation website, things like that, to make sure that the dates aren't changing, to make sure that the requirements aren't changing, because if they do, you still have to meet those, even though this document may say something different, right? Because these requirements are as of today. The ESM waiver application, it's important to know that that particular box, or it's technically 2 boxes on the list, is not applicable to everyone. Not everyone will qualify for it. We tried to make notes as we were preparing the graduation checklist to let you know if you are automatically ineligible. We tried to place a note on the list. But for the majority of you on a teaching track who have taken the appropriate courses and earned the appropriate grades, we definitely encourage you to apply for that ESM waiver. And what that is if you apply and you receive 100% waiver, that means that you don't have to take the multiple subject CSET. And this is something that we will be going over in depth during the second half of the workshop. So if you have specific ESM questions, we ask that you save those for the second half of the workshop today. And we'll be going through how to apply and all that stuff. The other thing specifically about the graduation checklist is that the deadlines for the credential program are specifically for CSUB. So if you're planning to attend the credential program at CSUB, whether it's multiple subject, special education, or single subject, the dates that are on here apply to CSUB only. If you're planning to go somewhere else, which is okay, maybe to a private university, another CSU, doing the Cal State Teach program, whatever, it's important that you know it's your responsibility to go and do the research to figure out when those deadlines are and what their requirements are, because they may be different. Every institution is different. So you have to make sure you're doing your due diligence to get that information on your own. Alrighty. Next up, graduation application deadlines. So on the graduation checklist, which we're going to go over in detail, I'm going to go back in just a minute and go through it in detail. Everyone who got one should have had a specific semester that you're set to graduate and then the deadline. We want to make sure, just in case we made any errors, that the dates that should be on there are on there. So if you're going to be finishing in spring of 2021, so if next semester is your last semester, you need to apply by September 21st of this year, which is actually on Monday. So less than a week, folks. That application is due. The same for summer. So if you're finishing spring or summer, that deadline is this upcoming Monday, September 21st. For those of you who might be completing the fall after that, so fall of 2021, that deadline will be February 19th, 2021. And then same thing, just to ensure that we put the right dates for the credential program deadlines. So anyone who's going to be starting the first stage of the credential or starting the credential during a fall semester, the deadline will always be the July 15th prior to that fall start. And then spring semester, the deadline will be November 15th prior to that spring start. So for those of you starting this spring, for credential, if you're graduating this semester, starting next semester for credential, your deadline for everything credential related will be November 15th of this year. It is important to know that your educational plans, some of you may have plans that have you blending the credential, either all of it or part of it. And this is only an option for some students. There's certain requirements you have to meet, certain GPA, different things like that. So if that's the option that we put on your ed plan, or that we reflected in your graduation checklist, it's important to know that you don't have to do it that way. That is just an option. And we will be going over the pros and cons of blending or not blending, just kind of briefly during the workshop. But if you ever have questions about this, the pros and cons and things like that, we can always discuss that one-on-one with you guys as well. So going back to the checklist, I did want to go through that in detail with you guys. So let me open that up. All right, so from the top, the first checklist item is when to apply for graduation. So what we filled in is based off of the educational plan that we created for you. So this will say spring 2021, fall 2021, summer 2021, etc. And then there will be a specific deadline. This link will take you to a page on the Admissions and Records website that gives you step-by-step instructions for how to submit the application. And it's really just screenshots. Okay, this is where you go, this is where you click. It's like 3 clicks and you're done. So it's really simple. One of the main things I like to mention though is that there is a $70 fee, but you do not have to submit that fee at the time that you apply. So you can pay that fee at a later date. And that fee is really due, like the deadline for that is really going to be due before you graduate or before you complete your degree. So if you're going to be applying on Monday, submit that application by Monday, but you don't have to pay the fee until next May, right? Because I know right now, especially people, $70 is a lot of money, and I get it, and I don't want you to miss out on applying because you don't have the funds to do that. Taking and passing the CBEST. It's important to know that that's not a graduation requirement, right? You don't have to pass that to graduate, but you do have to pass that in order to be admitted to the credential program. Or you have to pass the basic skills requirement in some other way. The other ways sometimes can be completed by SAT scores, ACT scores, EAP, EPT, ELM. I know all these letters mean probably nothing to you guys, but there are other ways that sometimes people can meet those basic skills requirements. The majority of our students just end up taking the CBEST because it's pretty basic and it's not too challenging. The website that we have linked there takes you directly to the CTC exam website, and you can click on assessments, then you'll click on CBEST, and then you can click on register. Excuse me, and the deadline that we entered there for each of your checklists is based on what the deadline will be for you to pass it for credential purposes. So again, it's going to be different on everyone's checklist based on when you're going to be done and when you're going to be starting credential hypothetically. Completing FAFSA. This is mainly just a reminder for you guys. Please complete your FAFSA application every year, even when you're going to be in credential. There's always a rumor every year that there's no financial aid for credential or there's no financial aid for master's programs, but that's not necessarily true. So it's really important that you always submit that FAFSA application for every academic year that you plan to be in college. The ESM waiver application. So again, we'll be going over this more in depth the second half of the workshop, but since it's on the checklist, I want to go over it briefly. For those of you who may be eligible for this, we want you to submit it at the beginning of your last semester of your bachelor degree courses. So for everyone, that month and year that we put in there may be different for everybody, just depending on if you're blending or not blending. If you're graduating next semester or 2 semesters from now, it's going to be different for everybody. The link there takes you directly to our website where you can find the application and the instructions. The response that you'll receive, most of you in that first one, it's going to say like 80% or denial or something like that. But basically, that first submission is for us to check everything so far. The second submission, which you'll do at the end of your last semester of your bachelor's degree courses, that is, as long as you've taken all the correct classes, as long as you've passed them with C minuses or better, then you would be getting potentially a 100% response, which is the goal, because then you don't have to take that big ugly test. In order to pursue the credential program, so this again is at CSUB specifically, whether it's special education, multiple subjects, or single subjects, you have to attend a credential information session before you can submit your application for credential. So we put a deadline on there of when like the final deadline is, but we really do encourage you to go early on in the semester. So for those of you who are graduating this semester and who want to start credential in the spring, we probably put November 15th as your deadline, but that doesn't mean that you can't go in September or October or early in November to one of the workshops or the info sessions. So we encourage you to go as soon as you can, but we did provide you with the last day that you could potentially have to attend one of those sessions. The links are there for multiple subject and special education. There may be a few of you who might be interested in single subject, and those dates for those info sessions are going to be on the same page as the multiple subject sessions. So if you go to that multiple subject one, you can find the information for both multiple subject and single subject. Alrighty. At the info session that we just talked about, the credential program advisor will go over everything, all of the requirements, how to apply, when to apply, what documents you need to submit, all of that information. One of the things that he or she will go through is the applications. So there's technically 2 applications when you're applying to credential. One of them is reapplying to CSUB. So think of it this way. If you're graduating in December, or say even in May, once you graduate with your bachelor's degree, you're no longer a student at CSUB. So in order to come back and pursue your credential, you have to reapply back to the university. So that's the online application through Cal State Apply. We've provided the specific term you should be applying for, as well as the deadline for that application. The second application that is also required to pursue credential is applying to the credential program itself. This is typically a paper application. Typically it's something you print, fill it out, and you turn it in hard copy. But since we're all working from home in this virtual format, the credential program has drop boxes and things like that that allow you to submit it electronically by attaching documents and things, but it's still not like a fully online application, right? But the same thing, we've entered the semester and the deadline for that particular credential program application based on your plan. So most of you, the semester you're applying and the deadline you're applying for both of these match. For those of you who may be blending the credential, you'll notice that these terms and these deadlines may not match. So the second application may come before the first one, and that's okay. We have tried to make it as accurate as possible, specific to your plan. If you change that plan, if you don't want to blend, if you decide that you want to take electives instead, all those kinds of things, then the dates and deadlines for this checklist may change. So it's just important to know that any change you make will then change the graduation checklist and the ed plan that we created. Alrighty, and that is the end of the checklist. Hopefully that's helpful for you guys, just to kind of see everything you got to do between now and graduation and before starting credential. We went over the graduation application deadlines. We went over the credential program deadlines. So next up is just talking about the pros and cons of blending. So when we talk about blending, what we're talking about is starting the credential before you actually graduate with your bachelor's degree. Again, not everyone's eligible to do that. It's not beneficial necessarily to everybody. So we recommend it based on what's going to be the best for you. But then you guys make the final ultimate decision if it's what you really want to do. So pros, for some of you, it may mean that you complete faster. It may mean that you're done with your bachelor's and your credential in a faster amount of time. For those of you who decide to blend either half of the credential or all of the credential, whatever you decide, it would mean that whatever you're doing with your bachelor's degree, you are paying undergraduate fees instead of paying credential fees. So it's a little bit cheaper, essentially, to blend hypothetically. The other thing is some blended students, again, this is up to credential. I don't think they'll change it, but in the past, students who are blending get a possible extension on when they have to have the CSET requirement completed or when they have to have the ESM approval completed. So that's another pro to blending. Some of the cons, which is what's really important. For those of you who want to blend, it's important to know that it may affect your salary as a teacher. Some of you may know this, some of you may not, but teachers are paid based on the number of units that they have after they graduate. So hypothetically, if someone got their bachelor's and their credential all together, and then they graduate, a potential school site who's hiring you could say that you have 0 post-bac units. That means that you are at the lowest end of the pay scale. Not all schools will look at your transcript the same way, which I know isn't necessarily fair, but that's just kind of the reality of it. So it's important to know how blending or not blending is going to potentially affect your salary. When I've looked at it at most districts, it's maybe $1,000, $2,000 over a course of the whole year, right? Plus, if you continue your education, if you get a master's, if you take continuing education units, things like that, you can move up the pay scale that way as well. So it's not like an end-all be-all. You can definitely move up the pay scale in different ways. The other thing, so your financial aid may vary, right? So financial aid is potentially available both as a undergraduate student versus a graduate student and credential student, but it's not the same. Think of it like they're pulling from a different pot of money, right? So when you graduate and then do credential, you're not necessarily receiving the same financial aid you were as an undergraduate student. The other con would be that you would be paying, whether you get financial aid or not, you would be paying the credential fees instead of the undergraduate fees, which is a little bit more than the undergraduate fees. So as you can see, lots of pros and cons. Each person will need to make the decision for themselves, but we want to make sure that you are making the best informed decision and that you have all the information before you decide. And for those of you that it's not an option or if it's not beneficial to you, then ignore that whole slide. All right. We're going to go ahead and break for questions real quick. And next up, we will be covering the ESM application instructions in detail. So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment and see where everyone's at with questions.
I think we're caught up right now, but if anybody has any questions before we move on to ESM. So when we talk about ESM, we'll go through like the specifics of completing the application and why you need to fill it out early and the different type of responses that you can get. But if anybody needs any clarification as well, feel free to ask.
And were you guys just answering the questions in the chat, like to everybody? Yeah. Awesome. Any other questions from anyone? You don't necessarily have to put it in chat. If you want to unmute yourself and ask it, you definitely can.
Yeah, I have a question. So for the residency program, we would ask the questions when we attend the credential information session, right?
Yeah, so they're going to have the most up-to-date information about the residencies. I know last we heard there may be one that's going away because of budget cuts. So I'm definitely going to defer to the credential program advisor for any questions related to residency programs because things are just changing so much right now. Yeah, good question, Angela.
And I did mention in chat, so starting next week, I don't know if you mentioned it, Dean, I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention.
But you're fine.
Starting next week, we'll have walk-ins every Monday and Wednesday for students with quick questions, no appointments needed, just in case you need clarification on anything. I know like this is not ideal. Ideally, we'd like to meet with everybody one-on-one, but unfortunately with the number of holds that we're going to get placed, like we didn't really get to do that. So if you still need follow-up, feel free to come in during our walk-ins and then hopefully help out there. So it'll be Monday from 8 to 10 and then Wednesday from 4 to 6. So we'll be putting out that information later this week and it'll be posted on our website too.
I also have a quick question. I think I kind of read through some of the chat questions. I just want clarification on, I was also having some issues with the link, the graduation link, like to apply for it coming up. So if I read correctly, we would have to like send a form to you guys. Is that correct?
I'm assuming you guys recommended they submit a contact request form. Is that right?
Yeah. So like if you don't have the link available to you, it might be that you don't have the required number of units for the link to appear. I think it's like 84 units when the link appears. So if you're like at 83 or 82, which a lot of people are, like especially if they have the potential to blend, so that link might not appear. But we can request that the Admissions and Records Office actually open it up for you. So if that's the case, just let us know so that we can talk to them and then they can open the link. If you do have the link and it's just not showing up, there might be some weird browser thing going on. So try a different browser. If it's still not working, let us know and then we can talk to Admissions and Records.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, because I think I had like 97 when I checked. So I was like, I'm pretty sure I should. But so I didn't know if it was, I'm a returning student, so I don't know if maybe that had anything to do with it. So, okay, I'll send you guys like a contact information request, right? And then we can go from there.
Yeah, the other thing too, I think that would be something as a walk-in would be really easy for us to handle right then and there as well. So if you'd rather just talk to us, and that way too, if maybe we're just looking in the wrong area, you could share your screen with us and then we could see kind of what it looks like on your end. So that might be another option too, besides the contact request form. Yeah, but I actually had that issue with the student that I met with yesterday. Same exact thing, the link wasn't available. He had plenty of units. But he was just recently admitted as a returning student. So that's why the link wasn't there. And I was just able to email someone and we got the link available right away. So it's an easy
Awesome.
fix.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
If we have any questions regarding the application for the credential program, can we speak to one of you guys or do we need to speak to one of the advisors of the credential program?
So we definitely recommend, again, deferring everything to the credential advisor, especially when it comes to the paper application. So that portion. But I will say that there is an office on campus. It's called the Graduate Student Center, and they can help you with the online Cal State Apply application. So if you're having trouble or if you're confused about what you need to attach or what you don't need to attach, they can help walk you through that application. So it's the Graduate Student Center, and I'll grab their link real quick for you guys and I'll drop it in chat.
And then we did have one question. So I'm graduating during the summer. We'll be taking 2 classes. Isn't guaranteed that those classes will be available during the summer. Maria, I think I did your ed plan, and those 2 classes, I believe, are part of the EDTE classes. So EDTE 4100 and 4200. So those are typically offered over the summer. But I did also just want to mention for anybody that might have gotten ed plans with the summer classes included, you don't necessarily have to do it that way. You could still extend to the fall if you want. So just keep that in mind. If summer is not an option, you don't have to do it that way. But those 2 particular classes are usually available over the summer.
I'm sorry, if no one else has a question, I'd want to take advantage of asking you guys a question I have. I wanted to ask what's the maximum amount of units? Like if I think I have to take it, or I have to take 2 classes in the summer to graduate. But if I wanted to take them in the spring, to do 8 classes. Is that possible? I mean, I'm not working, so I figured, I mean, I'm doing good with 6 classes right now. Is that even possible, or?
Mama, I did your, sorry, Dina, I'm like, just talking. I did your ed plan. You can take up to 19. So I know we had planned for 6, but if you want to add one more to your screen, you definitely can.
Awesome. Okay. That way I know what to sign up for when it comes up. Thank you.
Yeah, and for anyone else who's kind of curious about that as well, so the university policy is it caps everyone at 19 units every semester. And so if anyone wants to take over 19 units, so say, I don't know, you're really excited and you want to take 25 or 30 units or whatever, or even just 20, right? Just a little over the cap. There is an overload petition that has to be submitted. And that overload petition is approved and denied. Basically, it's based off of your GPA and why you're requesting to overload. So you can't submit that petition if you have below a 2.5 GPA at CSUB. If it's above a 2.5, you can submit the petition and see what they say. So for any of you who are interested in taking more than 19 units in the spring semester, we definitely recommend submitting that petition soon so that we can look at it prior to registration, which is October 26th.
I have a couple more questions. So we're able to do regular classes for winter break. So we do have a winter session. So winter session is like the first couple weeks in January. But the course offerings are very limited. So I'm thinking those should be out by the spring, or when the spring semester is out, spring classes are out.
Right, typically by October 26th, the winter and spring schedule should be set.
Yeah, and then the fees are going to be a little bit different. It's not typically covered through like financial aid or anything like that. So you would be paying fees through extended education. So any classes taken over the summer or through the winter session are done through extended open university. And then they should be putting out that schedule, hopefully in the next few weeks or so. Is it too late to add a class? So you can add a class still up until Census Day, but you have to have instructor permission, department chair permission, and then you have to get added through the registrar's office, but it is still possible. The last day to drop classes is September 21st. Let's see. Will the credential program for spring 2021 be virtual as well? Have we heard anything?
So like we all just, I'm sure you guys got the announcement last week too, about the chancellor's office seeing that majority of spring semester will also be virtual. I think most of the programs are still trying to figure out what that means for them individually. I think that would definitely be a great question for the information session for Credential to see how they plan to do that, especially because in Credential, they have that component of student teaching, right? So I think it's important for you guys to really know what that's gonna look like for you. But as far as the classes themselves, actual lectures and stuff, I'm assuming that they're going to be virtual like our undergraduate classes. But definitely a question to follow up during the info session with Credential for sure. And then someone asked where you can find the classes that'll be offered for winter. So you can look on your My CSUB when you're searching for classes. I wouldn't recommend searching any time before October 1st. Most of the classes won't be there before then. And if they are, they might change. So I would recommend like the first, second, third week of October, look on your My CSUB and just remember, instead of clicking spring 2021 for your term, you're going to be clicking winter 2021. And that should pop up the list of courses that are going to be offered in the winter session. We got some more questions coming in. I wasn't sure if Sonia, if you wanted to keep typing them or if we wanted to, I mean, I can answer Daniel's question. So Daniel's question is, when do advising appointments for spring 2021 become available? And as a graduating senior for spring of 2021, do you get priority registration? So advising appointments, we actually started advising for spring yesterday. So because of the number of students that we have and the fact that there's only 3 of us and we have almost 1,000 students, we have to start earlier than almost anyone on campus. So we did start, but that's the reason why we're doing these workshops, is so that you guys don't have to do the individual advising appointments. I know a lot of you are like, but I like to do the individual appointments, and we do too. We love seeing you guys. But at the same time, when we're looking at the volume of students that we have, especially the freshmen who have no idea what they're doing, we have to prioritize. So we are doing these workshops for you guys to try to take care of the advising requirement that way. And then we're encouraging you, if you do have additional questions or specific needs that we don't cover in the workshop today, that you can utilize those walk-ins that we'll have every Monday and Wednesday. So if it's, you know, something that can be answered in 10 or 15 minutes, utilize those walk-ins and we'll try to help you that way, as opposed to scheduling a full appointment. The other question, the other part of that question was registration priority. So when a student submits their application for graduation, so for those of you graduating in the spring, you're going to be submitting that by Monday, remember, that should bump your registration to the earliest day before noon. Unless admissions and records changes anything, that's when you should be expecting to register, because we want to give the highest priority to students who are graduating to ensure that you guys get the classes that you need.
I was answering a couple of private chats. Let me see. Did we miss anybody, or did you get everybody?
Yeah, I'm gonna scroll back down real quick. So Jennifer, looks like you're looking into that now. Sonia, Ronette, where do we send the ESM waiver to? So we'll be covering the ESM application in depth right now, but it's just the general liberal studies website. So, or sorry, liberal studies email, liberalstudies@csub.edu. Jocelyn, to get enrolled into Science 3010, will we have to schedule? Ooh, good question. Science 3010, our demise. I know, we all dread that class. I know we dread it for different reasons than you guys dread it, but the past 2 semesters, we have put department consent on the course so that you have to basically come in to get enrolled. Now that we're virtual, that makes things a little harder. So I'm actually going to be doing some data assessment next week to see if we need to reserve the seats or if we can just let it be open and let you guys register on your own. So as of right now, I don't have a specific answer for you, but if there are going to be reserved seats for our graduating seniors, then we will definitely let you guys know via email. And typically what we do is we will have walk-in hours the entire first day of registration, and that's how you guys will get help to enroll into the class. But we'll definitely be communicating specifically about that class with everybody for the spring semester and probably moving forward, because we know that that's one of our bottleneck courses. Let's see. Karen, looks like you took care of that, Sonia, already. Ali, I received a link to apply for graduation for fall 2020. My expected graduation was changed to date. How can I check if it was changed? Yes, Ali, it went through. I know I did your prep work and I confirmed that it went through correctly. So it's for spring now. All right. Any other questions before we move on to ESM? You guys are great. All right, so we're gonna move on to ESM. And Sonia, Araceli, you guys will probably continue to take care of the chat if questions come up, which we appreciate you guys doing. So for those of you who do not qualify for ESM or you don't plan to pursue it, if you want to hop off of the meeting or the workshop, you totally can. But for those of you who want this information and want to stick around for it, please hang out while we go over that. And then we will also have a break for questions afterwards if there were questions that weren't getting, that we weren't able to get to in chat. But the ladies, Sonia and Arcel, you guys did a great job getting to all of them. So let me,
One more real quick, just in case anybody else has a question about this, but for the EDTE 3000 waiver, so that does need to be submitted to the credential office for approval. And so I believe what they want you to do is they actually want whoever filled out the form for you, so like your supervisor that approved the hours, they want them to submit it to the credential office. So that's going to be sent to Jamie Barton at jbarton5, and I'll put it in chat. Because I know recently like a student submitted it on behalf of their supervisor, and they did request that the supervisor send it because it's supposed to be a confidential like evaluation. So if you do need to submit the EDPE 3000 waiver, if you haven't done so already, just make sure the person who signs off on it sends it to Jamie. Now I'll put her email in.
thank you, Sonia. And then just, I know Sonia, you had mentioned that in chat earlier because someone had asked, but just remember too, when you do submit that and you get a response back saying it was approved, we never get a copy of that. So it's really important that when you get that approval letter that you forward it to us. You can just use that liberal studies email so that we can also drop it in your liberal studies file. The credential program doesn't share it with us because they're not sure who are our students and who are not. So just as a heads up, if you already have the waiver approved and it didn't pop up on your outline and you're like, what the heck? It's probably because we just don't have a copy and we need one. All right, and I just turned my fan because I'm like getting warm, but did that mess with my audio a lot or is it okay? It's okay? Okay, cool.
You can hear it.
Thank you. I'm like dying over here having a hot flash. All right, let me share my screen. And we're gonna go to ESM. So the link that is on the graduation checklist for all of you is the same link that's here, and it'll take you to the Liberal Studies website, specifically the page that has the ESM application and that has the instructions for the application. So I'm gonna follow that link. This opened up in Internet Explorer. Whether it opens up for you in Explorer, whether it opens up in Google Chrome, Safari, whatever, it should take you to this same page. I'm always going to close that little chat. So the application instructions. So this is just a brief overview of kind of our process. So we want you to download the application and save it to your computer. That's the most critical step. And I know it sounds like duh, but it's one that tricks a lot of people. So I am going to go through that more specifically in a minute, but I just want to go through our main process to begin with. After you complete the form, so you filled it out, you save it, you want to email it to liberalstudies@csub.edu, and we want you to email it to us as an attachment. And again, we'll go over that more thoroughly in a minute. One of us will evaluate your application, and what that consists of is we run your transcript, we have your application, we have to double check that you took all the correct courses, that you earned all the correct grades, and then we forward our evaluation to our program director. He reviews it and then sends it back to us where we can generate a response to you. There's different responses. There's a denial, there is an ineligible, there is an 80% letter, and then there's a 100% letter. So each one means something different. The video here does go over what those responses mean a little bit. This is really more about what the ESM waiver is, not necessarily how to fill out the application, which is what we'll be covering today. But I do recommend if you have any questions about ESM and what it is, to watch this video, and then you can also view the frequently asked questions on our website. Down here though is the link to the actual application. And there's a little note again to download it and save it first. So I'm gonna click it and you'll notice it opens the PDF, but it opens it inside of the web browser, which if you start typing in your information and then you save it to your computer, it's gonna actually save a blank copy. So it's really important to save it to your computer and then open it in Adobe before you start filling it out. So I'm gonna show you guys how to do that. So in Internet Explorer, I'm gonna right click, save as. I'm just gonna go to my desktop, save. It's telling me it already exists because I did this yesterday. I'm gonna select yes. And then again, it opens it in the web browser. So for some people, when you start typing this in, it's actually saving it to your desktop, but for a lot of people, it doesn't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to minimize my web browser. I'm going to get out of my PowerPoint real quick, and I'm going to go to the actual waiver on my desktop that I just saved. And I'm going to right click and tell it to open with Adobe Acrobat. You may not have Adobe Acrobat DC, you may not have Acrobat Pro, you may not have like the most like fancy version, which is okay. If you just have the basic Adobe Acrobat, that will work. And as you can see, a lot of these tools won't be there for you depending on what version of Adobe you have, but you will see that it's in Adobe Acrobat. This is when you can start typing in the information. And then as you go, you want to continuously save it as you go. We have had, and I'll talk about this in a minute, but we've had a lot of blank applications submitted, you know, and it's an easy mistake, a simple mistake to make. So that's why we want to say it again and again and again. Make sure you're saving as you go, and make sure when you're attaching it that you're opening it and make sure it's filled out. So there are 2 pages to the application. The first page is just your information. So your name, ID number, the date, your email address. So whatever email address you plan to send us the application from, we recommend that you fill in the same email, so make a match. Just because sometimes when we're trying to look back at the email that you sent, we have to search by your email address, and it just makes it easy if it's already on the application. Phone number, so that's more if we have any questions, if there's any errors on the application, we can call you and get it corrected. Mailing address, just for our records. Graduation semester and year. So we want you to fill out what term and what year you plan to graduate. So fall 2020, spring 2021, summer 2021, fall 2021, whatever it is, fill that in there. ESM application, so we want to know, is this your first submission? So is this a brand new application? Or is this a resubmission? So on your graduation checklist, there's 2 submissions. We're telling you to submit at the beginning of your last semester and then at the end when your grades post. So depending on which one it is, you're going to check the appropriate box. We also want to know if you're from the Bakersfield main campus or if you're from our Antelope Valley campus, because there are some differences there. Next, we want to know what semester and year do you plan to apply for the credential program. And we want to know this information so we can prioritize. For those of you who, you know, may be starting sooner, we want to make sure we're getting your application processed. So if you're starting spring 2021, you would plug that in, fall 2021, spring 2022, etc. And then we are curious to know, are you going to be pursuing the credential at CSUB? If so, are you going to do multiple subject or special ed? And then if you're not going to be at CSUB, or you're just not sure and you're not going to apply at this time, which is okay too. You can still submit the ESM application, even if you're going to be taking a break from school in between your bachelor's and credential. The last question on this page is, we just want to know if you've completed the CBEST. Have you taken and passed it? Do you have an alternative completed? Like I mentioned earlier, SAT, ACT scores, certain scores could exempt you from taking the CBEST. Maybe you've taken the test, but you don't have your scores yet, or maybe you just have it scheduled. This is here not because you have to have the CBEST completed to get the ESM waiver, but it's really here to remind you that that's something you have to do in order to get into credential. That's what that's there for. The next section of the first page is just a huge explanation of what ESM is. We do recommend that you read through it. I'm not going to bore you, I'm not going to read it for you right now because you guys can definitely view that later. It is important to know that at this point in time, we're only reviewing students who started at CSUB fall 2015 or after. So if you started in 2013 or 2014, as of right now, you're not eligible to apply. But if any of you are in that situation, please let us know and we can talk about that. So yeah, so that's the end of that. Next, oh, the other thing which is super important, it was actually a question in chat, is how long until you guys get a response. And so we have a 6 to 8 week turnaround. And it really is that long because the 3 of us are doing the evaluations while we are also teaching classes, we're also advising 1,000 students. So, you know, sometimes you can get a response in a week, sometimes it takes the full 6 to 8 weeks. It really just depends on how busy we are. So, so just know that we are working hard to get them done and to get them out to you guys. All right, second page, which is probably the most overwhelming to look at, but we assure you it's really simple, especially if you have your outline next to you. When we created this form, this application, we really base it off of the outline so that it's the most easy, or the easiest way for you guys to fill it out. So what this first column is this is a list of all of the courses that the CTC approved for our ESM waiver. So a student has to take all of these classes and they have to receive a C- or better in all of them in order to receive 100% waiver for the CSET. And so what we want to know is for English 1109, which is a class that the state requires, we want to know what semester and year did you take this? Was it fall 2016? Was it fall 2015? Whatever. We also want to know what grade did you get, right? And that all that information should be on your outline because we list what course did you take, what term did you take it. We also list the number of units, which you don't have to put, and then your grade for the class. This column is the course equivalent substitution column. So for those of you who are native to CSUB, you've only attended CSUB, more than likely you're not going to fill out the majority of this column. Those of you who are transfer students, you guys will be filling out quite a few courses in this column. So Bakersfield College, we get a ton of transfers from BC. This class, you guys took English B1A, right? So it's the equivalent to English 1109, but technically it's not exactly 1109 because you didn't take it at CSUB. So we just want you to list it here. This last column is for our use. This is when we're pulling your transcript. This is our way to put a yes or a no in each of these as we're checking everything. So you guys are going to leave this column completely blank and we'll fill that out. But we want you to fill in these other columns and rows to the best of your ability. For English 3109, so that is the course that the CTC approved. However, we know on our outline, we have the options of English 3109, 3119, and COM 3008. Both English 3119 and COM 3008 were approved as equivalent courses. So for those of you who may have taken that instead, you would just then plug that in here and leave it at that. And there's a spreadsheet that we will share with you guys in a moment too that has our approved course transfer courses from some of our more local feeder colleges like Bakersfield College, Taft College, Porterville College, COS, things like that. So we'll share that spreadsheet with you guys in a moment.
Dina, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
In the course equivalent / substitution column, it says up there that we have to attach a course syllabus. If these were taken in the past from a different college, how would we find the course syllabi for that column?
Yeah, great question. So in a minute too, because we have so many transfer students that have these questions, I'm going to show you that spreadsheet that I was talking about. And then I'm also going to show you guys a way to look at your transfer credit report on your MyCSUB to show if the course is equivalent. Because if the university has already deemed that the course is equivalent, we don't need a syllabus, we don't need a course description, we don't need any of that. But if it's not a direct equivalency, then we do need those additional documents. And the way that you do that, it's kind of a pain in the butt, but you have to contact the institution that you took the course at, and then you have to contact the specific program. So say it's a biology class. You need to contact the biology department at that school and ask them for a syllabus. It doesn't necessarily have to be from the teacher that you took it with necessarily, but whatever's going to give us the most information, because our program director reviews the syllabus of any alternative course that's not approved, and to see if the content matches that of what the state requires.
Okay, thank you. So if it's a course that is equivalent, then we don't have to include that, just anything outside of that requirement?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So like I said, I'm going to pull up that spreadsheet in just a minute, and that's going to help probably clear up a lot, especially if it's from one of our local feeder schools. Otherwise, man, we'd be getting syllabi for for all kinds of classes all the time. All right, so down here, just like this last column on the right is for our use, this entire bottom section, so area 9, the concentration, that's for us to fill in, so you'll leave it blank. And then this entire section down here as well, you leave blank because we're gonna fill all that out when we're doing the evaluation. So that's it for going over the form, but I did want to share with you guys the that spreadsheet that I was talking about. So I'm going to go to our Liberal Studies website, and then under ESM waiver, and then ESM resources, there is for transfer students, approved transfer courses. So if you click there, it opens up this spreadsheet, and this will tell you exactly. So English 1109 is required. If you went to Antelope Valley College, the equivalent is English 101. If you went to BC, it's English B1A. If you went to PC, Porterville College, is English P101A. So if the course is on this list, we do not need the syllabus, we don't need the course description, we don't need any additional information. It's already pre-approved, okay? If it's not on this list, so say you transferred in from Northridge, right, another university, or it's not one of these community colleges specifically, there is a place in your My CSUB under your Student Center. You hit this drop down, you can go to something called your transfer credit report, and that allows you to view your courses that you transferred in, and to the right it will tell you if it transferred in as an elective, as just a GE requirement, or as a specific course. And all these types of questions too that are very specific, or if you're not sure, please know we're not going to not process your application, right? If we need additional information, if the course isn't automatically approved and you didn't get the syllabus, we're going to reach out to you and we're going to let you know that we need additional information. That's why we request that you give us your phone number and contact information. So moving on, so frequent issues. Like I've said probably 100 times, and I'm sorry, but please submit it as a PDF only. We have had students convert it to like a Word document, then fill it out and submit it, and that messes with the formatting. We've had students like print it, hand fill it out, scan it back in. So if you can, to the best of your ability, follow the instructions like I just went over, opening it in Adobe Acrobat to complete it, saving it, and then submitting it as a PDF. The other issue is blank applications. So like I said, if you're filling it out and then saving it, sometimes it'll save a blank application and then you're just attaching that. So what I recommend is whenever you're about to send the email, put the attachment in the email, but then click it to open it to make sure it's the one that's fully filled out. Correct email address. So I know between the three of us, we've had people email the applications to us directly, but we do ask that you only send it to liberalstudies@csub.edu because that's the shared email between the three of us, and we can review it a lot faster that way so it doesn't get lost in our personal emails. And then we also receive a lot of incomplete applications. So I'm not talking like you miss one row. I'm talking like sometimes they'll put their name and then everything else is blank. So we do ask that you do the best that you can to fill it out completely. But just know, again, if you make a mistake, we're going to try to fix it and get you to, as close to 100% as we can, right? Because we're going to pull your transcript, we're going to see what you've taken. But we definitely want you to do your due diligence to fill it out to the best of your ability. Next up, frequent follow-up questions. Like I mentioned earlier, there is the FAQ link on our website. So that has a lot of the frequently asked questions. One of the ones that I don't think is on there, but that we do want to address is if the ESM waiver can be used at another school. So say you're not going to do the credential at CSUB, but you want to go to Fresno State or Northridge or whatever. Yes, the ESM waiver that CSUB will give you if you're eligible, that 100% letter, you can take that to any CTC approved program in California. So any program that the CTC gives their stamp of approval to should accept our 100% ESM waiver. However, there is an additional signature that you have to get. So when we send you your 100% letter, hypothetically, it's going to have our signature, and then it's going to have our program director's signature, and then there'll be an additional signature line for the credential analyst. If you're going to be attending at CSUB, you don't need to get that credential analyst signature because you're already here. We already have your records and everything. If you're going to be going anywhere else, any other institution besides CSUB, you have to obtain the credential analyst signature. And that signature is from Stephanie Prelip, and there's her email address. And it is your guys' responsibility to contact her to get that signature. It's not something that we're going to do for you just because it's going to be too hard for us to keep track of who's doing what. So it's really important to know that if you need to do that extra step, that you're getting it done. And believe me, your institution that you're applying to credential will remind you that you need that additional signature. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing, see how we're doing and for questions. Actually, real quick before we do that, just to remind you guys about the walk-ins. So like Sonia had mentioned, we'll be starting walk-in hours every Monday, every Wednesday during the fall semester. And this information will be posted on our website probably by the end of the week so that you guys can view it there. And these are really more for like if you have additional questions, right? If there's something that you just need like 10 to 15 minutes for, come to the walk-ins, utilize those, because we're trying to avoid you guys making full hour-long appointments since we covered so much here in the workshop today. And then just to let you guys know, the walk-ins, the way that it works is it's a Zoom meeting. We have a waiting room, and as you guys come into the waiting room, you're put in a queue. And then we bring you guys in from the queue one at a time on a first come, first served basis. So you may experience some wait time, but you're just on a computer waiting. So hopefully you can, I don't know, do some homework or watch a movie or something while you're waiting. And we try to get to you guys quickly. Usually it's not too long of a wait time, but on our really busy days, when we're approaching the end of the time block, 8 to 10 or 4 to 6, we may close the meeting. So if you go to try to click on it and it says it's closed, that just means we already have too many people in the queue to add anyone else. And we just ask that you try on the following walk-in day. And then just a social media plug, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can follow us on any of those platforms. And, you know, we post updates there all the time. Anything we email to you guys, for the most part, we're also posting on social media. If we ever have to cancel walk-ins, if we have a last minute meeting we have to go to, we will post on social media about that as well. All right, back to questions. How are we doing, ladies?
There was one. Okay, so once you get the ESM waiver, so the 100% letter, like you don't have to use it right away, but once you have it, you have it. There's no expiration as of right now. Like as long as we have the program, we're good. So let's say you want to take a semester off or a year off, you can use that same letter to later apply to the credential program. And once you have the 100% letter, you have the 100% letter. It's going to have our signature. It's going to have our program director's signature. So it'll be like official. And then we had another question from Ali. Just to clarify, we can have our school site administrator fill out the EDTE 3000 waiver and email it to Jamie Barton. Yeah, no, email is good. And I think it'll be much faster. Any other questions here?
I have a question. Throughout the thing, I heard about the EDT 3000 or 4000 waiver. I'm not exactly, what exactly is that? Or was that any, how to do anything with the with the actual waiver that we were talking about?
So that's a separate waiver for a course specifically. So Angela, I can't remember what track you're on, but depending on the student's track, if you're on a multiple subject track or if you're planning to pursue and earn the multiple subject credential later on, and actually single subject as well, there's a course that you have to take that's called EDTE 3000 for our CSUB credential. And so the credential program has a waiver for that if a student is already working in a school site, like if they have done that stuff already. So that's what we're talking about for that particular class. For those of you who are doing special education, that wouldn't necessarily apply to you because they have different prereq courses for that program.
All right, so it's just for people who actually are working at the school site. They can get a waiver for that, for the hours.
Right. So like I said, because the point of the class is to get you in a classroom setting for about 45 hours. So if you have a paid position, you're working with K through 6, K through 8 kids, and or high school if you're going to be doing single subject, and you can get someone to verify those hours and fill out the form for you, then there's a potential to waive the class. There's also sometimes students can get it waived with like hours at different sites like the after school programs or the Boys and Girls Club, but still kind of the same thing. You're working with that population, you're doing academic related activities with them, things like that. Any other questions from anyone? You guys have great questions, by the way.
So we have, what is happening? Sorry, I think my dog is like going through my mini blinds. So let's see. We did have a question about, okay, so if you're finishing in the summer, when do you submit the ESM and when to resubmit? So if you're still planning on a fall, if starting credential in the fall semester, so that would still mean that the deadlines are going to be the same. So for fall, the deadline is going to be July. I always have to think backwards. I'm really bad at this. So the deadline would still be July to apply to the credential program. And then even though you're still going to be taking classes in the summer, EDTE, because I think, Jessica, I think I did yours. So EDTE 4100 and 4200 are not part of the ESM waiver. So you can still submit it now. So you can submit your ESM waiver now. By September, we'll have your results to you. And then you can still apply for a fall credential. And then you would resubmit, so you would resubmit at the same time, so December, once your final grades post. Because again, I think the final 2 classes that you need aren't part of the credential, or I'm sorry, aren't part of the ESM waiver. So you don't need that for waiver purposes. We do use them for the concentration piece, but we would just have to take a look at the other classes that you've completed in order to see if we can create a different concentration. If you took Education B24 at BC, it will waive the EDTE. So Education B24 at BC is EDTE 3000. So that would be the class, like you're good there. Oh, RSLE, sorry, you already answered that. For the ESM waiver, if we filled it out and we did not fill out the course equivalent, should we redo it and resend it again or wait until we're contacted? I would wait until you're contacted, because we do try to take what you put together, and if there are adjustments that need to be made, we can do that. So you don't need to resubmit for like a minor update. So you should be okay. And if you if you do get the results and something seems weird, feel free to contact us and let us know. So if you catch any mistakes or anything like that, like feel free to bring it to our attention. Just in case, because of course when we take a look at these typically during like peak advising time, so it's very possible that we can make a mistake. If something looks weird, just feel free to reach back out. First day of registration for the winter, it's usually
The same as spring. So same as spring, October 26th. So you guys, well, that's the first day, right? So that's the first day of registration for spring and winter, October 26th. But I think, like I said, I think it'd be best to look for those classes to see what they're actually offering during like the second or third week of October. Just because if you start looking now, there's not going to be anything listed because departments and stuff are still trying to figure out what they'll be offering. I think we're caught up in the chat questions. Anyone else have questions? You can chat, you can unmute yourself, whatever you feel comfortable doing.
I'm sorry, another question. So we might be eligible to like start applying for next semester. I mean, for like looking for classes if we just do the graduation, if we apply for the graduation thing, right? Sorry.
Are you saying if you submit your application for graduation, you can start looking for classes?
Yes.
Yeah, so you can start looking anytime. Like if you go right now, you'll see there are some classes for spring, but barely any. But we definitely recommend after October 1st to start putting your shopping cart together, start looking for the classes you need for spring. And then, like I said, the first day of registration will be October 26th. But this upcoming Monday, September 21st, is the deadline to submit your application for spring and summer graduation. So definitely get that submitted because that's going to bump up your registration date and time, which is a good thing. It'll ensure that you hopefully get the classes that you need.
I have a question. So for the CBES, I noticed on the ESM waiver, it says CBES taken and passed. Or for example, like I took it and passed. Do I need to submit anything with the ESM waiver that I did pass it, or because I did do it online via like the computer, does CSUB automatically get my scores, or how does that work?
Great question. So for ESM purposes, we don't need you to submit any verification of that. We just want you to check the box. But for the credential program, if CSUB doesn't already have your scores, then you will need to submit a copy of the email that you received saying that you passed it. You can use those basically as your official scores. So for anyone who's going to take the CBES or who has, they will send you an email showing that your scores, and if it says passed, make sure you keep that email because that's going to be your proof of passage when you're applying to credential, when you're applying for a substitute teaching position or a teaching position. They're going to be wanting that. So make sure you keep it in a safe place. Any other questions? And like I said, too, you know, for those of you who may have some questions but don't feel comfortable asking here, utilizing our walk-ins will be super helpful during the fall semester. We're hoping, so anyone who registered for the workshops this week, if and when you receive an advising hold, it's going to be lifted because you registered for one of these workshops. So you will not have to make a one-on-one advising appointment. We're asking you guys not to, not because we don't want to see you, but because there's just so many of you guys. And like I said, we're doing those walk-ins. So you're still hopefully feeling like we're accessible, still hopefully feeling like you're getting your questions answered. Okay, looks like we got another question. Planning to take a class during the winter and an extra class for the spring, so I won't have to take them during. Would it change my deadline since I'm registered to graduate for this summer, but I'm hoping to finish by the spring? So yeah, Maria, that might change your deadlines for a couple things. I would definitely recommend if you want to come in for a walk-in, and then we can make those adjustments to your ed plan, and we can make the adjustments to your graduation checklist and get that sent out to you again, revised. So yeah, anyone who's thinking about making changes and you're afraid that might change some of your dates, that's something we can do pretty quickly in a walk-in appointment, and we can get that changed for you. But either way, you're still applying for graduation by Monday. Oh, that's another thing. So say you're planning to graduate in the spring or the summer, you submit your application and then it changes, right? So maybe instead of summer, you're going to graduate early in spring. That is something that we can always have moved, right? We can always request admissions and records to move it to an earlier time or a later time, right? Say maybe you don't do too well this semester, or you don't want to take as many classes in the spring, but you've already applied for graduation. We can always move it to fall or to summer if we need to. So just make sure you're communicating any changes with us, and then we can help you adjust that graduation date if necessary. Rebecca, repeat how to find the course equivalent document. You know what? Let me just go ahead and drop it in chat. I still have it open, so that is that spreadsheet for the course equivalent document that has some of our local community colleges. So if you guys want to grab that in chat, it's also on our website under ESM resources. You can find it there. And then again, also on your My CSUB, you can go to your transfer credit report and view that there. And if you're having trouble with that stuff, again, that's something really quickly we can look at during walk-ins if you need to.
So if I want to change the graduation to spring, would I indicate that in the application, or do I need to wait till my plan is changed?
No, you can indicate that on the application. Yeah. So if you already know you're going to make those changes, and you don't have to have your ed plan or your graduation checklist changed. It's just for your own information if you want to. You can just submit it for spring instead of for summer.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yep. I feel like we should have music or something in between the questions. All right, well, I know the session was scheduled to end at 12:30. Maybe we'll stick around for a couple more minutes. Jamie, did you have something?
I was just going to ask, if I filed for financial aid for like this school year, it should carry over to spring since that's when I'll be starting my credential, right? Okay, just wanted to make sure.
But for those of you who might be graduating mid-year though, so Jamie, honestly, I can't remember if you're blending in the spring or if you're
I'm graduating this semester, yeah.
Okay, good question. So if you submitted your application for FAFSA for the 2020-2021 school year, but you're graduating mid-year, you may have to update FAFSA and the financial aid office to let them know, because typically they're only awarding it for your undergraduate career, right? And then you have to change your status. So the financial aid office should be able to help you adjust that for the spring semester so that you hopefully get a payout.
Okay.
And right now financial aid is working from home like we are. So for them, what I've been told is the fastest way to get a question answered is to email them. And so their email is finaid@csub.edu. I'll drop that in the chat too.
And then just real quick, so we did start advising this week, plus there's like the grad workshops and like a bunch of weird meetings that we're supposed to be attending this week. So for those of you that are submitting like contact request forms, just give us maybe like a day or so to look into it and respond. We do try to check that daily, the contact request and the liberal studies account. So if you did send us an email, just bear with us as we sort through it and take care of it. So like for those that didn't have the graduation application link, we just have to reach out to admissions and records, and then they will open up the graduation link. So we try to CC the students, and then they're usually really good about replying to all so that you know when it's been taken care of. So once they say, yeah, we're good to go, then you should be able to apply. So we'll try to be good about like making sure everybody's included. So that way you can kind of apply as soon as possible. I think the deadline is September 21st for spring. So we'll try to make sure that that's all taken care of before then.
And remember too, like if for some reason you don't get the link access before the 21st or something like that, please, please, please don't let it just go away, right? Don't just feel defeated like you can't apply anymore. Reach out to us and we will advocate on your behalf to apply late if we need to, especially if it's a link issue, right? That's not your fault. That's the system's fault. So just make sure you're reaching out to us if you run into any issues with anything over the next year. And if we take too long to answer emails, tell the dean we need another advisor. Just kidding, I didn't say that. Wink, wink. Thanks for the laughing emoji, Jessica. If we got the graduation week last semester and we're graduating this semester and paid, we don't have to worry about it. Yeah, so if you've already applied, you've already paid the fee, you probably have already gotten a response back from admissions and records, you're good and you don't need to worry about anything. FAFSA applications for the 2021-2022 school year should open October 1st. It's so crazy that they open so fast.
I do just want to mention one other thing in case anybody has questions about like the spring semester graduation. I know that's kind of on everybody's mind. President Zelezny is having a runner walk and talk this Thursday from 2 to 3. So I would definitely encourage you all to attend if you can. I'm sure like with everything going virtual for the spring, you all must have questions. We have questions, so it's good to just stay informed and keep up to speed with whatever's going on. So you should have gotten the email with the link. So that's this Thursday, 2 to 3 p.m., just in case anybody wants to attend. I know they've already mentioned like for graduation purposes of ceremonies, they have said, you know, you will not be forgotten. I think they're kind of waiting for the clearance to, you know, gather in large groups again. But we really don't have any information past that. But I think it's good to just continue to bring up, especially, I mean, that's the whole purpose behind these walk and talk. So if y'all can attend, that would be a good idea, I think.
All right, if there's any last minute questions, feel free to ask, but if you are good to go, and this concludes our session. Virtual hugs to anyone who may want one or need one. I hope you all are doing well and we miss you guys.
When is the video being posted?
I think we have to, well, you just need to review it, make sure it's good to go, but I would by the end of this week, because we have a few more workshops to go through up until Friday, I think, but we'll try to get it posted as soon as possible.
Okay.
There was another question in the chat if the $70 fee covers cap and gown. It does not. It covers basically your degree, like the printing of your actual degree, mailing, and them doing the actual graduation check. The cap and gown is separate.
Unfortunately. Also, when you guys pay for the cap and gown, so you can always check with the Runner bookstore. They're the ones who typically sell them, but the last time I talked to a student who had checked with them, they said that they weren't selling them at the moment, but I don't know if that's changed. So anything cap and gown related, you know, a frame for your diploma, all that like graduation accessories, I guess you could call them, would be through the Runner bookstore. Alrighty, guys, we'll let you go. Everyone have a good one. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully it was helpful. And good luck this semester and next if we don't talk to you before then.